guys, welcome back to the Pastor to Pastor podcast. We are so excited for another episode with you. And before we jump into all the good stuff we have for you today, introducing my dad, founding pastor of our church, but more importantly, the president, leader, our victorious leader, Pastor to Pastor, Dan Livingston.
Hey, man. Great to be here. It's awesome.
So we are excited.
Don't know about all that, but
hey,
good.
It's all true. It's all true here at Pastor to Pastor. Coming off of phenomenal month last month. Let's just kind of give everybody an update. We got to go to Charleston together.
Yes.
And on a retreat. Kind of give us a rundown on that for us.
Yeah, it was great. The retreat center is being renovated, so we shifted up there and went to the beach. And Palms Island had two beach houses right there near each other, and 14 amazing pastors. And it was awesome, man. Just great time together. A lot of fun together. The fishing, the golfing, the different things that we did together. But nothing beats the table, when you have a little meal and then sit around a room together and just talk life and ministry, and phenomenal relationships established. And now we're kicking off the cohort for the next 4 months, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. We got to, like you said, do a number of activities, but being together, that's the big thing. It was a blessing for me. We've, most of the cohorts that we've been on together, either you've been leading or I've just been in an observation role. This one we were trying to tackle a little bit together, and that was a lot of fun. And got to spend more than usual amount of time with Greg Surratt. Pastor Greg came down, and I haven't seen him hang that much. I don't know about you. I've only been on a couple of them before that, but he was, I think his wife was like, you need to get out of here. So he was hanging out with us for a while, but we got to spend some time with him and just have stories, laugh. But some of the healing and some of the breakthrough for some of those pastors was just phenomenal. Some of them are friends that went, and you could see God breathe new life into them. While we were on that retreat. Yeah,
one of them local. You'll know who I'm talking about. Don't use names unless we have permission. But, was pretty much felt like he was done in ministry. Yeah. And during the retreat, you could see a shift happening. Mm-hmm. And, and I was on the phone with him yesterday, and he's like, a kid in the candy store right now, just really like, man, it's just been renewed, the call of God on my life. It's just been totally renewed. And through time away like that, hanging around with some brothers that'll listen and speak into your world honestly and openly. I love Pastor Greg's comment, you need people at your table that love you but aren't impressed with you. That's right. And they'll tell you the truth.
That's right.
And when we get around that table, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
And that happened. And it wasn't all pretty.
No,
but that's what surgery does. But it's real, and it's genuine love. And, you asked for it. You said, hey, guys, can you give me some input on this? Yeah. And it wasn't negative. It wasn't attacking. It was just people speaking their thoughts, of, hey, man, God's not through with you yet, and here's some ideas and things to go home and maybe think about and do. And he did. Yep. And, man, it's just awesome to see, and that's just one of several stories that we've heard.
Yeah. I think the beautiful part, for him and a few other pastors that I talked to leading up to the retreat, because I think everyone's waiting for the bait and switch. So we go on the retreat, and it's like, when are we going to get a timeshare speech? Right, yeah. when are we going to get the and we give people opportunities for continued care. Like, hey, come check this thing out. If this was valuable to you, this is how you can keep doing this long term, and your church can be part of it. But it's not, one of the things that they kept asking was like, I don't have anything to give. Like, if you're looking for me to be a supportive role or pour into people or whatever, and I kept telling them, I was like, I don't want you to do anything. You're literally just going to be there and to have life breathed into you for the first time. Some of you in maybe your entire ministry life, you're actually going somewhere where no one wants anything from you. Yeah. They just want you to show up, be you, laugh, and enjoy the time.
Well, that's, and we're going to talk about these retreats in a few minutes, but I'll go ahead and say it, it's really set up exactly for that. It's not a conference. It's not a seminar. It is a retreat. Yep. And we have breakfast at, 8:30 every morning. If you want it, come and get it.
If you want to sleep till 11.
If you want to sleep all day. And we've had pastors do that.
Do that, yeah. At least,
they'll come out, here or there, but they're going to sleep. They said, man, I just need, my body is gone.
Guilt-free naps.
Guilt-free, naps, guilt-free sleep. If you want breakfast, come and eat with us. If you don't have to.
Yeah.
If you do, you go do what you want. We have activities planned, and if you want to participate, go ahead. And if you don't have to do anything.
You want to sit on a chair and look at the water,
That's
sit
right.
on a chair and look at the water.
We have lunch at 1 o'clock. If you want lunch, come and join us.
Right.
And after that, you go do what you want.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
One of the guys that was with us, he came in and he said, they got this new museum. I think I'd really like to go see it.
Yeah.
And he said, can I, is that okay? I said, brother, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what time do I need to be? And he said, lunch is at 1, so do I need to be back at 12:30? I said, you don't have to be back to whenever you.
That's right.
And he said, yeah, but they have stuff, we need to be back for it, right? And I said, not if you don't want to. And he couldn't get it that we were really being like, brother, you don't have to do anything. Dinner's at 6 and everyone needs to be there. But until then, you can do whatever you want to. If you want to get an Uber, if you want to use one of the cars, like you can literally do whatever you want to. So it's funny to watch people that are like, I'm really not used to it literally being just a place of rest.
Yeah.
But just that posture and demeanor from these men helps us understand the way that we're conditioned to be, driven through the cattle farm, if you will, like move through the gates and the next thing. It's like, no, this is really just an opportunity for you to not even hit the brakes, put the dang thing in neutral and just rest for a minute or park or whatever, but just rest. So it was just really, really good to see the life change happen.
And it's crazy because I did not know that, but either before you or after you, he came to me. So he got a double confirmation. Like, is this really okay? And and then what was really neat is it was a Black History Museum or something because he's African American.
Yeah, Social Justice, I think,
There
museum,
you go.
something like that. Yeah.
And so he talked about going, and 3 other pastors said, "Hey, we'd like to go with you." Of different nationalities, and they all went to this museum together, and they came back with such a testimony of how it united them in their future conversations together, hearing his story from it, and then really just bonding together. It just created a really neat bond in these guys, and in the text threads that we're having now, you can see that conversation. And, that would not be there had they not have gone on that trip and experienced together. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was trying to look it up. I don't see it, but the International African American Museum, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, 100%. And that's the beauty, right? It's that, when you get, we've referenced it so many times, the guilt of rest, how pastors just do a terrible job resting. But those are little glimmers, I think, into the subconscious condition of pastors, which is like, but I got to be at the next thing, right? And that's how we are in our churches. That's probably how we are in our lives for the pastors that have kids. You got to be at the next soccer game and the next football game, the next swim meet or the next chess match or the next cheerleading competition. And then you got the next church event and the next small group you got to lead and the next church service you got to preach at and, the next, thing for your family and the next thing for your church. And to get in an environment where you can literally turn all that off. I mean, I had a staff member there. One of our pastors from our church was there with us, but he was there for rest, not to help lead. And at one point, I told him, I said, "You turn your phone off tomorrow." Because he was still working, and I'm like, "Turn your phone off tomorrow." And he just looked at me like, "I don't know how to do that." And I'm like, "You're on my staff. Like, there's nothing you need to be doing tomorrow." I said, "If the world burns down, so be it." I said, "Tell your kids or your wife they need you to call me." But all that to say is just like how hard it is for us to do that. And we have a pretty healthy culture here. So, but that's still a hard thing to undo in our mind. It's
been mind-boggling to me because, when we first started and the door opened for these retreats there, outside of Charleston, and, I thought when we get this word out, man, we're going to have to really filter through and tell people no. You got to wait till another one. And we're literally out here almost having to beg pastors to go. It's free.
Right.
It's told, all you have to do is get there. And as pastors, I don't have time, doesn't fit in my schedule, things are too busy. That you're saying the very reasons why you need to go.
Yeah, exactly.
But once they get there, it's like,
I needed this.
Oh my God, how I needed this and didn't realize how important it was,
Well, the thing is like what people fail to understand is like, and I'm working on, so I have a follow-up blog to the Guilt of Rest I'm working on right now, talking about fill-ups and oil changes. And fill-ups are sabbaticals. I mean, fill-ups are Sabbaths, but oil changes are sabbaticals. And the idea that you can only run that engine for so long without stopping to change the oil before everything in it's going to break down. And we're seeing that happen left and right with pastors. So small churches, big churches, pastors are getting caught in moral failure. They're getting burnt out. And it's like, guys, we're giving you opportunities to not fall into these traps, but you still got to take it. We just like how you are with your people, you can give them all of what the Bible says, but at some point they got to do something with it. Pastors, it's the same way for you. We can give you all the blogs and resources, but if you don't pick up the phone, if you don't send us an email, if you don't get on one of these retreats, at the end of the day, you're still responsible for your spiritual condition. Your church needs you healthy more than it needs you here. And we have to keep that in mind,
Yeah. And it kind of leads into our topic today because, we always hear about pastoral care, which is important. And that's the pastoral care of the congregation.
Yep.
Setting up, systems and things in place to make sure the congregation, hospital visitation, counseling, prayer teams, whatever. But what about the pastor's care?
That's right.
Equal to pastoral care, the pastor making sure the congregation is taken care of. Where is that system in place where the congregation now makes sure the pastor is taken care of?
Right.
And, let's talk about that today.
It's funny you say that. I was just talking to my wife. There's a video that got posted recently on the internet, my favorite place. And it was a video, and it's a bunch of guys. They have a podcast, and I don't particularly care for their podcast because I think it's all like jaded church talk from people that got hurt by the church, and now they're trying to speak against it all the time. But they made a video, and they were talking about how if pastors lost their paychecks and their buildings, they wouldn't pastor anymore. And they were talking about how if you're a pastor and you lost your paycheck in your building and you wouldn't pastor anymore, then you're a fraud. And I was thinking to myself, you wouldn't say that about nurses. Yeah. If nurses didn't have a hospital to go to and they weren't getting paid, they would go do something else. You wouldn't say that about a chef. Right. Yeah. No, you wouldn't say that about any profession. So the fact that you would say that about pastors and try to hold that standard is just absurd. And the reality is the vast majority of pastors aren't getting paid too much money. They're getting paid too little. They're not golfing every day. We joke about it times they're not golfing 4 times a week. They're working 80 hours a week. They're at the hospitals and they're taking care of their people. The vast majority of pastors are far closer to burnout than they are abundance. And so, the reality is it's important to have this conversation about the pastor's care and how the church has a responsibility to care for its pastor. So that he and his family can have long-term sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah, the average pastor is putting in about 60 hours a week, 55, 60 hours a week minimum. Yeah. And the average salary across the nation is $48,000 a year.
For pastors.
Per pastor.
Yeah.
A senior pastor. Yeah. Social media and television has warped the reality of the life of a pastor.
Well, the average size of a church is 60.
Yeah.
Right? So when you talk about averages, and a 60-member church isn't going to have multiple staff members. So you have one person caring for 60 people, and that's a lot. It may not sound like a lot, but it's a lot. So yeah, the averages really skew in the favor of the pastor being, underpaid, overtapped, and needing help and needing health.
And if you put that in perspective, that's like investing all your money into owning a restaurant, going in at 5 every morning, getting everything set up, knowing that you're going to have maybe 4 or 6 customers walk in today and eat, and that's going to base your salary off of that. Yeah. And yet you're going to go into all of those hours of work knowing that that's the little income that you're going to get.
Right.
And that's the life of the average pastor today.
And then to get beat up on the internet, chastised by a board member or a deacon member or whatever, it's like,
it's like, okay, I have to be called to do this.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, we need God on our side. And the reality is like we love what we do, and that's not always the case. The board member that's a pain or whatever, those aren't continual problems, but they usually pop up at just the right frequency to kind of drive us crazy. But so the reality is we need to be talking about the pastor's care. We need to be talking about how the church is supposed to, equip and handle long-term sustainability for the health of their pastor. And that's essentially what your blog was about. And we have some pastors that you've actually worked, what we're going to talk about for the pastor's care. We have some pastors that you've actually worked with to accomplish this goal, and we're seeing monumental results, right?
Absolutely.
So give us some of the data from what you have in your blog to help us understand, or some of the main points, and then we can get to a concept. It's not something every church needs to implement, right? But it's just a concept of something that's been successful with other churches.
Yeah, first of all, I think going back to the pastoral care versus the care of the pastor, that, one of the major issues facing the church today is this topic, of what system does the church, and every church, no matter what size, no matter what income, no matter, needs to have something in place that you're investing back into the man that has set his life out there to take care of you. And, understanding that if we don't, I send out, every time we talk to a church, let's start at the beginning to answer your question. Whenever we have a church that allows us, or the pastor we meet and build relationship with, and that's where a lot of these have come. They didn't even come to us going, hey, can you help me? Just in relationship and talk, and we heard where they were at, and there was nothing in place for their welfare, and we began to talk to them and go, hey, what about this, and this? Well, no, okay, who do we talk to? Okay, I'm not even asking you, can we do this? Give me a name and a phone number of a board member, and let me help you.
Right, because most pastors say no for their boards.
Right, they do. And then most pastors have told me, well, I've been part of the problem because I refused raises. They did try to help me in the beginning, but I knew the church needed it more than me. And I said, well, they're talking to the wrong person. They need to talk to your wife, and she won't turn them down.
She won't turn that raise down.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, so pastors have created some of the dilemma that they find themselves in now. And so, or they're not comfortable asking or presenting. But, whenever we talk to a church, whether it's 5 people or 5,000 people, and we've been brought into churches running over 3,000 that had no system in place for the welfare of their pastor. And so we're dealing with one of those right now. And so, I always ask when I get the pastor give me permission, and nothing's done with hostility. It's done with deep care on our end. We're not going in to beat up a board. We're wanting to have them take care of you. We're not beating them up.
The phrase that we've said before is we're asking the board to become proactive rather than reactive.
Right.
Rather than waiting for your pastor to walk in and go, guys, I'm tired. I can't do it like this any longer. Now you got to react to the pastor's condition, become proactive about maintaining the pastor's condition and what you want it to look like. And so that means, like you said, we're not going in and like, guys, you're terrible. No, it's just saying like, let us help you become proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, when we've seen this several times, but when we talk to, finally, we get to talk to some leaders in the church, I ask them, I would like for you to send me all the records you've got on your building. What are you spending on your mortgage or your rent? What are you spending in utilities each month? What are you spending in maintenance? And they send that to me. And then we sit down and we start going over that. Why are you spending that much for a mortgage? Is that normal? Why would you want to do that? Obviously, we know the answer already. Well, if I don't spend it, I don't have a building.
I need air conditioning. I need electricity.
It makes sense. Well, the utilities, why you spend? Well, if we don't pay it, the lights go out. Okay. Maintenance. Well, if we don't maintain it, it breaks. Okay. This is what you're spending for your building. Here's what you're spending for your pastor as well. And so if you don't pay him well, like you do your mortgage, you don't keep him. If you don't pay and take care of him, his lights go out.
That's right.
And if you don't maintain,
we're talking about emotional lights.
Emotional lights. And if you don't maintain him, he's going to break down too.
That's right.
And so we've got to come over and equal that investment. Now the amount may be different.
Not dollar for dollar, but intentionality.
Intentionality, putting a system in place that's going, if we're going to keep a building, maintain a building, keep the lights on in it, then if we're going to keep this pastor, maintain him and keep his lights on emotionally and spiritually, we have to invest something there. It's not just going to happen.
Absolutely.
And so we help whatever church and wherever they're at, and whatever their income, whatever they've got. It may be something start off very small. It may be a church that's got it, and let's go ahead and put a total plan in place. One of them that we were referring to was a pastor in his 60s that came to one of our retreats, and he was sitting to my right, and I was at the end of the table running the table. It was our first night, and on that night, we usually just go around and do a quick bio, who we are, where we're from, tell us a little bit about your family first. We'll know about your family, your ministry, and that's pretty much the first night, and then we get into the nitty-gritty the next 2 nights.
And for the record, when we talk about ministry, one of the things we do is just like, where's your church at? We don't really care about numbers. We kind of have a no numbers rule. It's like we're not interested in your attendance numbers, salvation numbers, baptism numbers.
Right.
It's not a contest, for lack of a better term. So
we're going to celebrate the wins in our cohorts.
In the cohort, but
at this table,
you don't need to feel inferior or boastful about your church, because we're not here to be impressed. We're just here because we care about you.
That's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's very important. And he wouldn't look up. He was in such depression that he wouldn't even look up at us, and he just mumbled to where we couldn't hear him. And so, we told him, hey, you don't have to say anything. And long story short, he didn't at that point. We come back around him. He just gave his name and all and said, I'm in chronic depression. And so we just kind of ended with that. And then we got to talk privately. And, 16 years in the ministry, same church. I won't go into all details so that it's not all, people identify everything, but, no raises, no bonuses, no system of welfare in place, no care in place.
No retirement in place.
No nothing.
Yeah.
And then, in chronic depression and in serious chronic depression. Yeah. To right now, not only is a ministry on the line, but a life's on the line. It was there out of his mouth, later. And, so he connected me to a couple board members, and we had a Zoom call together, very positive, very proactive. And they love this guy to pieces, and grateful for him. Little country church out in the country. And, and very grateful for him, but did not know how to take care of him. And so they were like, what do we do? You tell us what to do. Yeah. And so long story short, we put a system in place. And he sent me a text. I showed it to you, a few months after, or a couple months after that. And he got a raise. He gets a bonus every quarter. Him and his wife get sent away by the church every quarter for 2 nights and 3 days on the church's dollar, an hour, 2 hours away to just be together, regroup, rest, breathe, come back. And so got to get an annual review now every year. And so we were just at a retreat, a married couples retreat in Orlando with him and his wife. We found out there was space, so they got invited.
Oh, come on.
And so Kathy and I, my wife and I, we took him to breakfast the second morning. He walked in there like a 16-year-old kid,
full of life,
and he's 66 years old like me. And his wife was all smiling, and we sat down at the table, and he began to tell Kathy about how blessed for our connection. His wife said the same. And he said, I just want you to know I'm off of 3 of my 4 depression meds.
Come on.
He said, our church has grown 20% since January. And his wife said he's like a kid in a candy store. Yeah. It's like he's that young teenager just got called into ministry,
That's amazing.
And there's more to that story that I don't want to share here, but just how that one story, just through just showing up at a retreat, fried, burnt out, and and then the right connections and joining with guys that care about you. And let's walk this journey together, and then just help and educate a church how to take care of their pastor.
Yeah, because most of the churches they want to honor their pastors. Yeah. I would say a good chunk of them would want to honor their pastors. They honor their pastors spiritually, but they don't know how to honor them tangibly.
Right.
And most of, I think, the downfall for a lot of pastors is their board and they're making decisions in a vacuum. Right. Meaning that the only thing they're taking into consideration is where the church is and where it was last year.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but what happened in culture? What happened in society? Inflation hit. Inflation over the last few years was significantly more than the 3 years prior than that. Like what is all playing into how we need to be responding to that for our pastor? And so the hard part for that, for most of the time, is they're making a decision in a vacuum. So all they're looking at is what was last year's numbers, what are this year's numbers, let's make a good decision here. And you need someone that has a better purview, right, to be looking at, well, what should it be? And more importantly, I think one of the greatest questions that to ask, which honestly, when we went through this for me, and I brought on a compensation committee. So I brought on two of my overseers and one of my board members, and they collectively make up my compensation committee. One of the questions that the overseer asked the board member was, what is the replacement cost? So not just what do you think he's worth? That's your opinion. That's irrelevant, right? Hopefully they think I'm worth, enough to take care of me, and they do. But
they do.
But for the churches out there, hopefully your board thinks enough of you. But the reality is, even if they don't see it that way, what they can't argue with is what is it going to cost to replace you? If you were to leave tomorrow, and I think a lot of church boards would be shocked at what the replacement cost of a pastor is. The replacement cost, the average replacement cost for a pastor for a pastor to move to a new church and start pastoring there is like $85,000 a year. Now, in some cities it's lower because of cost of living and stuff like that, but $85,000 a year. So if you're paying your pastor $55,000 a year, $60,000 a year, and he's been there for 15 years, if you were to leave tomorrow, you're instantly going to go up to 80 or 85. So why not at least build a plan?
Right.
To start setting that as a trajectory instead of just going, well, let's just give them a few $100s more than last year. We brought in a few $100s more or whatever. I think that's just really important. So we have to understand replacement costs when we're talking about how we compensate our pastors and take care of them. So it's important.
Yeah, and we hear this often, well, we don't have the money. Let the AC go out. You fix it.
You'll find it.
You'll find money.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, so all of a sudden we were able to do that, but we couldn't afford $1,000 to bless our pastor. But we can put $5,000 in an AC unit.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too, I talked. So last year I talked to a board for one of the pastors that was on the retreat with us this past time. Same conversation, that we just had, that you had with the other guys' board, and same thing. We're going through the whole nine, And so we're just looking at what does it cost to do everything, and where are we at with the facilities, and taking better care of them, and all of those things. And at the end of the day, when he was like, well, if we say yes to this, I don't know that we can continue that pattern long term. I said, well, here's the thing you're missing out on, is that God honors honor.
That's right.
So when the church honors the pastor, God honors the church. So the quickest way to know that God isn't going to send you new people and new givers is to not honor the head of your church. Now, I'm not talking about getting crazy, giving him a Ferrari. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about just giving him real wages, giving him a package that is honorable. And if we'll do that, then what happens when we give him that package is we're honoring him, and now God can trust the church with more and the board with more, because we've proven that we're trustworthy in how we honor our pastor. So that's a really, really big one that I've talked to the boards about, where it's like, if you want God to honor your church, then you got to honor your pastor, honor the head. And for the record, that's been our language long before I was the pastor. We talked about it with you when you were the lead pastor. That's like we have to establish a culture of honor. And I believe part of the reasons why God has honored not just our church, but a lot of the churches we're connected to, is because they have a culture of honor for their leadership, and they do exactly what you're talking about here. Yeah. They prioritize the pastor's care.
Well, it has started at the top. That we have a saying here to our staff, and we use it with pastors because it's how we definitely feel, is you're more important than your gift.
Right.
And church leadership has to realize that man is more important than what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah.
That his life. Yeah. He said yes.
Yeah.
God made a call, and he said yes.
That's right.
To not just be your doctor, your counselor,
right.
All these other people that you look at as professionals, but you don't go to them because they cost you something.
Yeah.
So you go to him to be, well, what do I do if I feel like this? You know, what do I do if I want to buy a house? You know, now he's a realtor.
The realtor,
you know, like you said that, you know, before. And he's there for you, man. He's the angel of the house, the Bible calls him.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and so how do we keep him healthy?
Yeah.
How do we keep him well? How do we keep his marriage strong? How do we save his kids, you know, that they're not part of that 80+% that leave the church when they get 18 and above because they saw so much negativity toward their parents and abuse toward neglect. And, you know, so now they want nothing to do with the church. How do we turn that around?
Yeah.
And it's not that hard.
It's not.
You know, it's not that difficult. It's just coming to an understanding of begin to put some systems in place that's going to make sure that our pastor's well.
Right.
Show an honor to him, you know.
Yeah. So we'll put feet on the ground for a second. What's the very first thing that a church should do to prepare and to prepare for the pastor's care? What do you think what's the first thing they should do to take care of him?
Well, I think, you know, it's going to sound like a big, broad answer, but just sitting down and looking at the areas that we talked about, you know, number one is let's get a committee together that's not all the board. Mm-hmm. You know, get a couple of
input from outside sources.
You know, we help pastors and we encourage pastors, you know, like you have an outside board of pastors that understand pastoral life. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not a businessman that's out there. They're a businessman as a leader of a church, but they understand pastor life.
Right.
And there needs to be some voices from the outside that deeply care about that pastor and the church, the welfare of the church. So it's not just looking out for him. It's looking out for the long run of the church.
Gotcha.
You know, and so
you need pastors. You need some pastors to speak into your board's ears on behalf of what pastoral care looks like, or the pastor's care looks like, which we can help with that, by the way. If you need us to be those voices, we can be those voices.
Absolutely.
So that's the first step.
Yeah. And, you know, then just coming in and looking at the finances and going, okay, not do we have anything? Mm-hmm. Where do we get this from?
Yep.
You know, what do we need to move something if we need to? Like I said, if AC unit goes out, we all of a sudden find money. Mm-hmm. And there's funds there to take care and invest in your pastor. And just some simple things. It's not complicated.
Right.
You know, where's his salary? And based on, you know, and there's all kind of programs out there to help you know. So we're not saying all of a sudden take him from here to here and bankrupt the church.
We just need to evaluate it.
But let's evaluate, you know.
With
and
the outside voices.
That's right, with the outside voices, you know, involved. And then, you know, make sure that he's in the realm of where he belongs. Yeah. And then, like you said, an annual review, and not just based on numbers, but based on, you know, just giving honor and where he's at and where the whole church and the health of the church is at.
And inflation, society change, cultural change, those things.
You know, and we're not only, when we say pastor, we're talking about pastor, wife, family. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, you've got the salary. Then, you know, this pastor needs some time off. Mm. You know, when I say time off, that comes in various forms.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it starts off with, number one is vacation time. And, you know, that should be no less than three vacations a year. Yeah. You know, just right off the bat. Yeah. Because we're talking as pastors here. Yeah. And until you are one, you just will never understand. And understanding the emotional, the mental stress that comes with that, the time that he's not at home with his family that everybody thinks he is. Right. He's taking care of your families, neglecting his. And so those vacations are crucial to sew back in. And you're a witness to this, that whenever we went on vacation, and I didn't do this right. You know, I'm one of the guys that failed horribly at this because the church, I kept saying, God, you know, family, church, but it wasn't that way that too often. Mm. And, you know, I wasn't a horrible dad, but I wasn't a great.
Yeah, the church found its way into family time.
Yeah, it did, a lot, a whole lot. And so, you know, we're trying to help other guys not repeat our failure. Thankfully, God, in His grace, all of our family's doing well. Sure. And we love each other and we love the church and the kingdom. But, you know, is making sure those vacations are there. But when we would go on one, we would tell you, we're doing this because the church blessed us.
Yeah.
We always let you hear the church is good to us.
Yeah.
Because we never wanted a negative mindset in our kids toward the church. Because we knew y'all saw things.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
we tried to hide it, but we couldn't hide it all.
Yeah.
And so vacations are crucial. Then to come back to a pastor and his wife, it doesn't have to be anything flamboyant. If it can be, make it as flamboyant as you can.
Yeah.
Because you can't overdo it.
Yeah.
You know, when you're taking care of the wellness. I'm not talking about a Lamborghini. I'm talking about health issues and mental and physical and spiritual. Is, you know, every quarter, you know, the church just, you know, a nice hotel an hour or two away for a couple nights a quarter.
Absolutely.
Church funds the meals, the gas to get there.
Yeah. Make it. And what I tell pastors is make it a weekend.
Yeah.
If you're preaching in your pulpit more than 42 times a year, that's a problem.
Yep. Yeah.
You need to let someone else preach that Sunday and you get away.
Yeah, you're creating the issue that we're trying to resolve, that you're creating the people to be dependent upon you.
That's right.
You know?
So that's a huge one too. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for throwing that in there. You know, but every quarter you need to get away for a couple nights, 3 days, and just be together and just breathe. Don't try to make that a vacation.
Yeah.
Make that just getaway.
Yeah, I love it.
Breathe, relax, enjoy each other's company, read a book, walk down a beach, you know, whatever it is. And then, you know, we definitely, and churches have to grow into the sabbatical thing. You know, you don't go in there and start going, I want this, 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 and this. Sure. But you grow into a sabbatical. And you just came off of one. So why don't you kind of tell us about the sabbatical?
Well, you know, it's funny. My sabbatical is, you know, I think I don't even call my sabbatical a sabbatical, really. I just call it a yearly rest cycle. But for some people, it would be considered a sabbatical. So I have a yearly rest cycle, which is the third week of June through the second week of August. And I don't preach for 6 Sundays in a row.
Wow, and the church survives.
It survives. Yeah, It does great, actually.
Matter of fact, we had some of our largest attendance.
The largest attendance we've ever had was when my student director preached. I'm still mad about it. But all that to say is, we take those weeks off, and let's face it, a lot of the church is traveling too, so it's a great opportunity for you to travel and rest. But it lets the church hear other voices. And here's the thing I tell other pastors you need to understand. Is if those voices aren't as good as yours, you got new up-and-coming communicators that are learning how to be in the pulpit and stuff like that, you have to create space for them to learn.
Yeah.
So the summer is a good time for that to happen. The second thing I'll say is that if you're the best communicator in the world, that's okay. But if all your people ever do is eat filet mignon, then they don't know how good they have it because they've never had, you know, just some basic chicken breast.
Get a hot dog, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not okay to let someone communicate that's not as good as you because you're reminding your people, you're letting them be reminded, man, my pastor he's good. I appreciate the work he puts in. So those things are okay. But I take, 6 weeks out of the pulpit. This past summer, I took 3 weeks out of the office. So my overseers have me set up on a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week plan. So next year it'll be 8 weeks. And then the year after that will actually be a full 12-week sabbatical is what they're putting me into. So I'll probably go into that kicking and screaming. I'm not going to lie. But it's what we need to do, right? And so it's healthy and it's necessary. And so during those sabbatical weeks, I'm completely unplugged.
But that puts a demand on the pastor to be able to do that you're creating leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not a one-man deal.
No, 100%.
And you're creating teams and leaders that we're building a legacy, not a memory.
Yeah.
And so as you're establishing, but that's what you're doing because you're putting in that hard work to build those things. So you get a way to rest, recoup, just get fresh vision, looking for the future, and you're building those teams around you that let you do that. And it was great. It was the first one that we've seen here that long for you.
Yeah.
And the church didn't miss a lick, man. I mean,
it was great.
It's been phenomenal, and it forces your team to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah, so sabbaticals are a real thing, and we can help you structure those. as an organization, we can come and help you structure what that's going to look like. And then the last thing, that I'll mention as we close out for today is the cohort. We're talking about Pastor's Care. It's the cohort, which is, for us, we can get you on a retreat. That retreat can move you into a 12-month cohort where you're on a retreat every year. Your wife is on a retreat every year with other pastors' wives, and she's able to get healing she needs. And so you're building relationships. She's building relationships. You guys are staying healthy. We got coaching calls. And the church can help invest in that too. And all those things are necessary.
Yeah. No, and we're seeing that, so just to kind of break that down, we're working right now putting a cohort together, or it's already in place. If anyone that wants to know more information about it, they can contact us. And, but that we'll just kind of repeating that what we want to do is get pastors on board with us. And so it's an annual commitment from them to us and us to you. Yeah. That from your church, so it's nothing out of your pocket, and we'll sit down and help you with your board, set it up as a mission, part of your missions budget. Yep. And so it's a retreat for the pastor every year. Yep. Have a beautiful ranch, and that we go to, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And then a retreat for the pastor's wife every year. And that's not on a ranch, that's on a beach.
That's in Destin, Florida.
Yes, sir. Beautiful beach. And then it's a monthly cohort for the year that we're together with a group of pastors, with you, that relate with you. And it's the same pastors. Each year for the cohort.
And each month on the call,
Yeah, and so it's just building a relationship and growing. So, and then, we're like on retainer for you. That if you need us, you call us, and we're here.
And we can help. We can help with the board. We can get you the amounts and all those things. If you reach out to us, we can help get you involved in the cohort, help you show you the cost, and give you a cost breakdown. But more importantly, show you how you and the board can make it part of how the church takes care of you. It's not something you need to fund, Pastor. This is something that the church needs to fund on your behalf. You'll be better. Your marriage will be better. Your home will be better. Your family will be better, and your church will be better because you're better, and that's what you need. That's what we all need. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I'm a horrible fundraiser, but I don't have a problem when I know we're helping guys. Sure. And if you're listening out here, maybe you're not a pastor, or you're a pastor and you're already involved in things that's taking care of your wellness, or maybe you're a business owner, or just somebody in the church that's tuned in and you're part of what we're doing. We want to invite you to help scholarship. That any seed that you sow is going to help us, because some of these pastors right now, it is hard. We're trying to get the church to start just taking care of them. And so to make a retreat and all of that, part of it is a little early, but some scholarships is going to let us bring pastors like that guy. That we were talking about, and it can literally save his life and save a ministry.
Yeah. So you can go to pastor.life, click on give, and you'll see some information there about sponsoring a pastor's cohort. And we can get you moving forward on that. You can click the link and you can give right there. Very easy. So we want to sponsor pastors. If you're a pastor out there, we want to get you moving. So excited about making sure that pastors are taking care of themselves and letting the church take care of them. It's a big deal.
Yep. So absolutely.
Well, thank you guys for checking us out for this episode of the Pastor to Pastor podcast. If you have any questions, anything that you'd like to know more about, go to pastor.life. We are on the socials, so you can check us out: Instagram, Facebook, at Pastor. I think it's Pastor to Pastor. Now I forgot. So, but we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, everywhere you can think of to look us up, and on YouTube. So if you're listening to this, you can find us on YouTube. If you are checking us out on YouTube, then you can make sure you go to Instagram, Facebook, all those places to check out more information at Pastor to Pastor. So we appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for checking us out. Check us next time. I'm pretty excited about the next podcast we're going to be recording. Looks like we'll be recording a follow-up to the Pastor's Wives podcast, or the Pastor's Wives episode on the podcast, with an episode on the pastor's kids and what they go through. So it's going to be good. All right, guys. Hey, thank you. We'll check y'all next time.